Hi, I decided to film another video. So today we're going to talk all about labor, the labor land, Laborville. That's, come to think about it, that's what they should probably name the hospital ward, Laborville. Anyway, enough about my blabbering about hospitals. I had a fun time giving birth to my son, and I'm actually really excited about making this video because it means that I can actually talk about it online and share my story. Whew, this is hard. Okay. When I was about 34 weeks pregnant, I went for a scan. They told me that I don't need another one. Everything had been going great. The baby was fine. I saw him. They told me it was a boy. I was happy about it. Everything was going good. So there was no need for me to request another one, and so everything was fine and dandy. So I went home, and like every other new mom, I started preparing anything and everything for the birth. So my due date was on the 16th of July, and so I knew that by then I had to be ready with everything, his room and everything else. So when the 16th came and nothing was happening, I mean, I wasn't even getting any contractions or anything. I kind of started freaking out because, that anticipation just kind of makes you wonder, when is it going to happen? Why isn't it happening, So, on the 18th of July, on my birthday actually, I went and met with my midwife. So she asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, I want this baby to come out. I want to meet him. It was after my due date. She suggested that I wait up until the very last moment, which meant 2 weeks after your due date. And I was like, all right, if that's what you recommend, that's fine. So we met on a later date, and she scheduled my induction. So by this point, I had no sign. In fact, when she did the sweeping, she couldn't do that because I wasn't dilated at all. So this baby did not want to come out. We went to the hospital. I was very nervous. And they took my vital signs and everything, and then a lady proceeded to stick something inside of me, which was quite painful. It's sort of like a tampon. Anyway, so after that, they told us that we could go home. And they told me that I could just call the hospital if I feel, intense pain, that kind of thing. So they kind of described it for me so that I would know what I was looking for. And so we came home and we just went about our day. I remember my husband was playing video games, and I was sitting on one of those balls that pregnant women have, the big one, and I was just jumping on that and minding my own business. They recommend that you jump on that because it gets things moving forward, and in just a few hours things started moving forward. It's just the fact that I kept getting these really weird intense pain that I didn't have until then. Pains that were just making me want to exit my own body and just run away, and so I just told my husband, you know what, I think I'm getting worried, because they were quite often. I kept writing on a piece of paper when they would happen. So we called the hospital, and they actually just told us to come along. I wasn't expecting it to be that quick, but apparently, you know, if you do an induction, they expect you to call in a few hours. So we went to the hospital. In the taxi, it was pretty tough because I kept feeling pain, and it got really, really bad. So we got there, and they started, you know, they wanted a urine sample again. They took my vitals. They put me on this bed. They they were monitoring me on machines and so on and so forth. They were, you know, monitoring how often the contractions happened, and they told me that I'm on the right path. However, when they checked how much I was dilated, it wasn't too much, you know? It wasn't moving very quickly. But a few hours after that, one of the ladies broke my water. After that, my husband had to leave the hospital because it was getting close to nighttime, and they moved me to this different room, and I was just supposed to sleep it off, right? But I believe I stayed like, I don't know, half an hour to an hour in that room, and I started to feel worse and worse, where it was just so, the pain was just so bad, and I couldn't even sit down, I couldn't sit up, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. Tried going to the toilet a few times, that didn't work. So I went to one of the midwives there, and I just told her, listen, this is not working out for me, I need some attention. And she was like, well, come with me. They put me in one of those, like, it was, I wouldn't call it a bathroom, but it was a room with a bath, special for, you know, women that suffer pregnancy pains. And I just laid there, you know, for a while to make the pain go away. That person left, I was just by myself, and I felt good for a while, you know, the pain went away, I felt good, I was just lying there, you know, just feeling, for the first time, feeling relaxed, for the first time in so long, and all of a sudden I felt like something was going on. So I called the same midwife again, and she was like, come with me, we'll check your dilation again. And she just looks at me and she says, all right, it's time to move you to the labor ward. So I got back to the room that I was in because I had to move my shit. And I called my husband and I told him, actually I think I messaged him. Yeah, I messaged him. They're saying that I'm giving birth, so you need to come over. He probably didn't get a chance to sleep anyway. So they moved me into this room which had a big pool type of thing, and they didn't even ask me if I wanted to give birth in water, but I guess since that was available, they moved me in there. And it was beautiful. It was kind of like therapeutic in a way, because you had like all these lights and all this water going and everything. So, and the colors were really relaxing. It was blue and green and like palm trees, and it was amazing. And I hadn't seen anything so relaxing before in my life. Yeah, so they told me to get as comfortable as I could. I took my clothes off and I went straight in the water, and I started getting frequent contractions. So by this time, I mean, I was getting used to them, but they were definitely getting stronger and stronger by the second. And I remember feeling I felt safe there. And at the same time, it felt weird because I was naked, you know? I remember at one point, my husband arrived, and it felt alright, you know, it felt good. Um, and at some point they asked me if I'm okay, you know? And they had to move me out of the water. They had to um, put me on the bed again and check my dilation. And the thing is, the way things were going, I was supposed to give birth by then, but they noticed that something was wrong. They decided to move me to a different room. They asked me again, because by this time they asked me a few times if I wanted an epidural, and I said no every time. So they moved me to that different room, and then they asked me again, do you want one? And this time I said yes. And I was scared of epidurals. I was scared out of my mind of them because it's a needle going into your spine. I was scared for different reasons, you know. It's not something you want to do. Plus, I didn't know how it would affect the baby. So I was reluctant to do one, but I did it anyway because I felt like I was dying. So this guy came along, the anesthesist, and he told me that we can stop at any time, that I should tell him when I feel in pain and everything else. It felt like I had no reason to be scared. It felt way easier than I expected it to be. Okay, so meanwhile in motherland, my baby woke up, so I had to bring him in here with me. So if you hear noises, that's what's up. Right, getting back to the story. So they did the epidural on me, and I was starting to get numb, and they were asking me if it felt alright, if I could feel anything from my waist down. Couldn't really feel much, so they kept testing that with this spray thingy, and I had to push a button. A few midwives came and went through this whole process, so it's what I'm telling you right now is a very short version of what actually happened, because this whole thing happened through 20 hours. So the labor time was 20 hours. So at one point I remember when things got really serious was when this new midwife came in, and she checked my dilation and she was like, I think we need to begin. We started. She started to guide me through it. She told me to push, but the problem was that I didn't know how to push, and she kept telling me that I need to push like I'm taking a poo. Alright? So that's what she was telling me, and I did what I could. I mean, I don't know how to do that when I'm not doing that, if you know what I mean. So, plus I was in a, I was lying down, so I don't know how I'm supposed to do that lying down. But anyway, we kept going. It was, there was a while, it was a while now since this was happening. My husband was right next to me, holding my hand. He was, encouraging me and everything else, but it wasn't going anywhere. So the doctor came in and a few other nurses and midwives. They were saying it's not happening. There was talk of cesarean. There were all kinds of things happening. So they moved me into theater. They did. And I was at this point I was okay with whatever they wanted to do, I didn't want a cesarean in the beginning, but if they thought that this was gonna get my baby out of me, I was okay with whatever. So they moved me into theater. My husband came with us, and when I got there, they immediately started, because it was hurting so bad that I couldn't breathe anymore. It was bad. It was really bad. Of course, the baby wanted to come out, so, and you'll know in a minute why he wasn't coming out. So the doctor assessed the situation, and he came to the conclusion that my little baby had his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, right? So he tried everything. Nothing was working, and in the end, he had to pull him out with a forceps. It's not actually a forceps, it's called something else, but it does the same thing. I believe it's something with suction too. It just does a lot of things. They have new stuff in now, so you know, it's obviously made easier, but it's still not the easiest thing in the world. So thank God I didn't have a cesarean, because I didn't want one. But during that whole time, until he managed to get the baby out of me, I blacked out. I felt delusional. I felt like the need to tell him stories. I lost a lot of blood. I almost died. There was a lot of things happening. I remember at some point I even vomited. And because I was like that, I couldn't breathe. So they had to, like, you know, turn me and lift my head up and everything. It was bad. It was really bad. And at some point, I said I wouldn't cry, so it's fine. At some point, they just put him on me, and in that moment, I felt like I can breathe now, and all of that was worth it, in that everything's okay now. That's what I felt like. Okay. So after I saw him and I saw that he was okay, he was this tiny little thing, so tiny. They took him to get him cleaned up and everything, and I later found out from my husband that they had to, well, not resuscitate him, but of course he went through a lot, so they had to make sure that he was crying and that he was breathing properly and everything, and then they gave him to my husband, and my husband held him and he was crying his head off and everything. And I was looking at my husband and I was like kind of telling him how to hold him as if that was a problem, you know? And at this point, the doctor was stitching me. I forgot to mention that because this was the case, they had to stop me from pushing the epidural button, and they just told me, you have to feel this, because you're gonna have to feel the way you push and everything. So technically I did the epidural for nothing. It was just because I had like a, let's say, an hour and a half roughly of no pain, but that was about it. And so I felt everything. And as I said, I ripped pretty bad, so they had to stitch me. I guess I did it, you know. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world. I would talk a bit more now, because I was thinking to myself, should I talk about the other things that happened afterwards? But no, that would be something for a future video, for the next part of this baby tales thing that I'm doing. So he was born at 11:33 at night, and thank God everything was okay in the end, you know. I was okay, he was okay. It took a while for me to get better, but everything went well in the end. And I just want to say thank you to the doctor and everyone that helped out, because I mean, there's no words. What happened there that day, for me, it was a miracle that we're both okay, you know? So, yeah, that was my birth story. Thanks so much for hanging with me, and also thank you for giving the last video so much love. And before I go, I just want to say there's a red button below, and if you push it, magical things happen. Especially to me, because it really means a lot to me when you guys push that button. So thank you so much. And also, I just want to ask you guys that if you want to, we can start a conversation. So please leave some comments down below, and we can, because I'll respond to you. I really want to do that. I really want to be close to this community that we have started. So yeah, please comment down below. Please let me know what your stories are, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!